The smell reaches you before anything else, just one that belongs to a city that has never been clean. Open sewers run down the center of every street. The sweet rot of fermented fish sauce bakes in the afternoon heat above you. 1 million human bodies packed into a space built for maybe a third that number. And nobody managing this situation has ever considered it a problem requiring a solution. You've been awake since before sunrise. The building you rent a room in is 6 stories of crumbling timber and dried clay, packed so tight with other people's lives that you can hear your neighbor's arguments through the wall as clearly as your own thoughts. There is no glass in the windows. There is no running water above the ground floor. You carry everything up by hand, every day. You're a free man. This is worth saying clearly, because it is not a given. Roughly 1 in 3 people living in this city right now is enslaved, which is a fact so enormous, it has simply become part of the furniture. Nobody examines it. You're a craftsman, a sandal maker, working a stall in the shadow of a portico off the Via Sacra. You have a wife, 2 surviving children, out of 4 born, and a debt to a moneylender named Gaius that you have been managing rather than paying for the better part of 3 years. The interest accumulates the way water fills a boat. Slowly, then not slowly at all. You try not to think about what happens if Gaius decides he's done being patient. You think about it constantly. The year is 49 BCE. Caesar has just crossed the Rubicon. It's a river roughly 200 miles from where you're standing, and it means nothing to you yet. Politics belongs to the men who have time for it. The senators in their white wool, the equestrians moving money between provinces, the people whose names get carved into marble. You are not one of those people. You know a war is coming the way you know a storm is coming. By the way, the men at the Thermopolium talk faster and drink more, and look over their shoulders at nothing specific. You know Caesar is a name people say like it carries weight. You go home and fix a broken sandal strap by lamplight because the oil has to last the week. The building catches fire on a Tuesday. No warning. No organized plan. The city has 7 cohorts of vigilers, night watchmen serving as both firefighters and police, but the nearest station is on the other side of the Aventine Hill, and by the time anyone arrives, your building is just a column of orange light visible from the bridge. You get out. Your wife gets out. 1 child gets out easily. The other you carry down 4 flights of stairs through smoke so thick it has texture. And you make it, barely. And you stand in the street in the middle of the night with nothing. Gone. All of it gone. This is not unusual. This is Tuesday. The insulae burn constantly. They're built fast, built cheap, built tall by landlords who collect rent through agents and have never once stepped inside the buildings they own. There is no building code that functions. There is no insurance. There is no municipal housing authority waiting to place you somewhere. You sleep in a doorway for 3 nights. You find a room on the ground floor of another building 2 streets over, damp and dark, which costs more per month than the room you just lost, because ground floor rooms are safer, and safety in this city is a premium nobody explains to you before you need it. Your new neighbor is a man named Lucius, former soldier, served under a general whose name he says with the specific pride of a man who has very little else to show. He lost 3 fingers on his left hand somewhere in Gaul, and came home to find that the farm his family had worked for 2 generations was now owned by a senator who had purchased it from the estate of a man who had purchased it from his father, who had borrowed against it and died badly. This is a common story. The legions that expanded Rome into an empire left a trail of emptied farms behind them. Small landowners who served and returned to nothing, and wealthy men who filled the gaps with slave labor and called it prosperity. Lucius rents his ground floor room and bets on chariot races, and seems, mostly, fine with how things turned out. Lucius tells you one thing the first evening you share cheap wine in the alley behind the building. He says, "Never get sick." He says it the way a man says something he learned the hard way. Flat. No decoration. No interest in whether you believe him. You believe him. Physicians exist. Most are Greek freedmen with genuine training, working inside wealthy households. The public healers who operate near the forum charge fees a craftsman can manage only when he isn't yet desperate. When you are desperate, the price adjusts accordingly. Men in this city who fall seriously ill often die not from the illness alone, but from everything surrounding it. The missed work, The food they stop buying to pay the healer. The debt growing underneath all of it while they lie still and can't stop it. The summer brings fever season. It always does. The marshes outside the walls breed it. The aqueducts bring clean water into the city, which is genuinely remarkable engineering, and future centuries will discuss it with appropriate awe. But the clean water flows to the fountains, and the bath complexes, and the great households, and what flows back out is everything else. The Tiber receives what Rome produces. The Tiber is also where the poor fish, not from ignorance, from hunger. Your younger child develops a fever in August. It breaks after 4 days. You don't sleep during those 4 days. You make an offering at the temple of Asclepius, which costs you something you can't spare. The child survives. The games are free. This is not generosity. The magistrates and wealthy sponsors who fund the spectacles at the Circus Maximus understand one thing with great precision. A crowd being entertained is a crowd not asking questions. You go. Everyone goes. 100,000 people in a single afternoon watching chariot races until the shadows go long across the sand and the torches come up around the track. You cheer for the greens because your father cheered for the greens, and the tribal allegiance of it feels like the one thing in this city that belongs entirely to you. Lucius bets on the blues out of spite and loses what he has with a cheerfulness that is either admirable or deranged. Probably both. You eat street food that costs almost nothing and tastes like it. You go home full of something that isn't quite happiness, but isn't its opposite. By year 2 in the new room, you've rebuilt something approximately resembling a life. The sandal stall is producing again. The debt to Gaius has been renegotiated under terms that are worse but survivable. Your wife has taken in mending work from a household 2 streets over. The children attend school with a freedman who runs lessons in a rented portico. A few coins each month, which you pay because you watched your father not pay it, and you know where that road goes. You have learned which streets to avoid after dark. You've learned which landlords fix the stairs and which ones collect rent and wait. You've learned to bribe the man who controls water access on your block. You've learned the precise social geography of this neighborhood. The correct nod for a patron. The correct silence that keeps a neighbor from becoming someone who talks about you to the wrong people. The census comes every 5 years. A man with a stylus records your name, your property value, your family. Your entire existence in the Roman state fits onto 2 lines of wax tablet. From those 2 lines you pay your taxes, receive your grain dole if you qualify, and vote in an assembly that meets in a field outside the city where the wealthier centuries vote first, and the matter is usually settled before your group is ever called forward. You have never once affected the outcome of a vote. This is legal. This is the system working exactly as it was designed to work. Rome did not invent democracy. It inherited a version of it and refined it in the direction of efficiency, which is to say it arranged things so that the people who mattered most could decide things fastest, and everyone else, he could feel they'd participated. Lucius dies in the winter, not dramatically. An infection in his remaining fingers that traveled upward over 9 days, while he kept working because stopping meant not eating. You sit with him the last 2 nights. He doesn't say anything significant. He asks once about the upcoming races. He falls asleep in the middle of a sentence on the 2nd night and doesn't wake again. The landlord has his room relet within the week. A young man from Campania moves in, fresh off a farm his family no longer owns, blinking at the noise and the smell with the fragile look of someone who hasn't yet accepted his situation. You see it in his face, that particular thickness of optimism that belongs to a man who still believes the city will make room for him. You don't say anything. You've learned that it doesn't help. He'll understand in a few months, or he won't, and either way the room will be occupied by someone else before long, and the city will keep moving, and the Tiber will keep receiving what Rome produces, and the fires will come again whenever they come.